So this is going to be part 2 of our 2-point perspective videos. So in this video, we're going to be taking the techniques that we learned in part 1, where we were drawing the boxes, and we're going to go over how to turn those boxes and that technique into a more complicated interior space. So you can see that we're all set up here with our horizon line and our 2 vanishing points that are on opposite ends of the page. So that's going to give us plenty of room for our drawing. It's important that your vanishing points are all the way at the ends of the pages because your drawing takes place in between them. So it's important to make sure those are as far apart as possible. So when we're working with 2-point perspective, we're going to be starting off with a corner first. So this is going to be in an interior space. So if you're working from life, you want to select one corner in the room to start off with. This could be a corner that's coming toward you. This could be a corner that's moving away from you. Either way, it's going to work for 2-point perspective. So you want to make sure that you are focusing on a corner in the beginning and not a flat plane like you did with 1-point perspective. So this is going to be an imagined space, so I'm going to make this up as I go along, but I'm going to show you first how to set up the basic structure of a space. So first I'm going to start off with a corner that goes through my horizon line. So remember, the horizon line refers to our eye level, so that means this corner is passing through our eye level. So we're just going to see 2 planes. So here I'm going to make a corner that's coming out toward us. So we know what to do with this. We already know that we're going to connect the top and bottoms of this line to both vanishing points. I'm just going to make it a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to start off by connecting the tops of the corner to both vanishing points. And then we'll go for the bottom. So this is just like a really large box. You're already familiar with this, so nothing new here. Okay, so this represents a corner that is coming toward us. Okay, so right now we have what just looks like a really big long box. So I want to create a space with some more interesting dimension to it, with corners that are facing us, with corners that are moving away and receding away from us. So I'm going to go ahead and make another corner in the space as if this room were turning. Line up our ruler right here. I'm going to start by taking a vertical line and just connecting it between the line that I already have. Okay, so the way this is right now, it doesn't look like much yet. So we've got a corner here, and since I want it to look like it's moving away from us, we're going to turn that into a Y shape instead. So right now we've got this line here on the top and this line here on the bottom that are in the correct space. But to open this up and make it look like the corner is receding, I want to connect this line to my opposite vanishing point. So it might seem a little confusing at first, but I'll show you how this works. So on this opposite side, I want my floor line going in the opposite direction. So I'm going from my opposite vanishing point here on the right, and I'm going to make a line that goes out toward the left. Okay. And then I'm going to do that same thing here on the top. I'm going to bring that all the way out to the edge of the wall. Okay. So I'm going to erase these lines as I go, just because it's going to be easier to see what's going on here if I don't have any of these extra guidelines. So we'll get rid of that. Okay. Now you can see we've got this corner here in the center that's coming toward us. This corner here off to the side that's moving away from us, and we're creating that effect by making the lines go in the opposite direction. So if you want the corner to look like it's facing you, the top edges are going to go down and the bottom edges are going to go up like a V. If you want a corner that looks like it's moving away from you, you want the top edges to go up like a Y shape. And that's going to give you that effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another one of those on the other side here so you can see it again. Like I said, this might be a little bit confusing at first. It's a little bit different, but you know, just like with anything, once you practice and get the hang of it, it's going to become really easy and it's going to make a lot more sense. So we're doing this to give this space some more dimension and give it some more interesting planes. Make the space look a little bit more dynamic. Okay, got another wall going opposite. So this is creating some more visual interest in our space. And then I'm just going to add one more wall. Okay, so I just added that additional wall just to make the space look more like multi-dimensional and more interesting. So it kind of sets the space back here into the middle ground, and this gives me a shape that's closer to me, which is more in the foreground. So it just helps to add to the illusion of depth in this perspective drawing. So now that we've got the basic structure laid out, we could start adding other things to the space, like details on the floor or ceiling, furniture to the space. So as long as you remember that everything is just boxes, just more complicated boxes, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to work with and a lot less intimidating. So we're going to go ahead and start adding some more details to this room. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a door over here to this wall. So you want to make sure that when you're adding doors to your space that you're following the same vanishing point as your ceiling. So my ceiling is coming from the vanishing point on the left, so that means the top edge of my door should also be coming from the same vanishing point, the vanishing point on the left. So I'm just going to make a line for the top, and then I'm going to a vertical line for the sides. So if you're having trouble getting straight vertical lines, you could always measure out from the side of your page. So for example, if I were struggling to create a straight line here on the right, I can measure, you know, my ruler's coming this way, so I would measure at, let's say I'm going to make a mark at 15. I can move this down, staying aligned with the edge of my page, make another mark at 15, and then line my ruler up to those 2 points I made. Measuring from the sides of the page is going to ensure that my lines are straight. So if you're somebody who struggles with getting straight lines, measuring from the sides of your page could really help, and it will save you some cleanup work later. Okay, so here we got our first, just the frame of a door in our space. So again, make sure that you're coming from the same vanishing point as the top of your wall. So I'm going to start adding some little details to this space. I'm going to put a little throw rug on the floor over here. Going to go off the page. So here I've got the basic shape of a throw rug. Next, I'm going to start adding some tiles to the space that go underneath this rug and across the floor. So for tiles, remember, we're going to come from both vanishing points. That way we get that kind of crisscross tile pattern. So the easiest thing to do is to measure out your points to make sure that your tiles are evenly spaced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start making a mark at every 1/2 inch. Okay, so here we've got our tile floor. So remember, you have to go from both vanishing points to get that tile-like pattern where they cross over each other. So it's important to make sure to keep them consistent, that you measure out your points. For this, I did a 1/2 inch. It all kind of depends on how big you want your tiles to be. If you want them to be larger, you could do more space. If you want them to be smaller, you could do less space. So that's pretty much up to you. So we could go ahead and keep adding other details to the space. I will go ahead and add, a shelf here on this wall. You could try adding some windows or frames to this wall. So remember, everything is essentially just going to be treated like they're boxes. Okay, so we're going to continue to add different pieces of furniture to this space, maybe continue adding some details to the walls. Remember, as long as you treat everything just like boxes, you'll be able to refine them and make them look more realistic later, but you want to focus on the basic structure of the space and the basic structure of the objects in the space before you get into your details. So we'll add a table here sitting on top of the rug. You're going to mostly see the tabletop. So here we have the very basic layout of a room in 2-point perspective. You could see, just by using the same technique we used with the boxes, we could create a space with multiple dimensions, multiple elements, and multiple details. So this space could easily and definitely be pushed a lot further. The details could go a lot further, but we're going to stop right here because I think this gives you a basic idea of how to proceed with the technique when you're making more complicated spaces on your own. Just remember to stick to the rules of perspective, always follow your vanishing points for all angles in the space, and keep your vertical lines nice and straight and parallel to the sides of your page. As long as you're following the rules of perspective and sticking to them at all times, you will be able to create a nice, interesting space that looks cohesive and consistent.